Alright, hey folks, everything new under the sun. We're going to talk about time-lapse photography with the Olympus TG-5. So have a look at a couple time-lapse videos, and then we'll get to how you create them on the TG-5 and some of the configuration options that you might have otherwise missed. Alright, as promised, here is a time-lapse. This is supposed to show the tide coming in, but the tide didn't really come in fast enough, but it actually gives a good indication of the exposure as it changes over the night, and it does a really good job of it. You can kind of see the water coming up. This, I believe, was 5 frames per second, and it was the full 299 frames. The battery basically died on it by the time I got back to pick it up. But it looked pretty good, to be honest. Here's another short clip of the kids playing Nintendo. Now, the Ken Burns effect is just done by iMovie, so that's not something that the camera does itself. But it works pretty well. So the Olympus TG-5 does, of course, have a nice time-lapse option, and you wouldn't necessarily know that it exists, or at least the features of it, unless you read your manual closely or you were brave enough to kind of tinker around and push some buttons. I found it wasn't super obvious out of the box where the extra time-lapse options were, so I'm going to show them to you just because I thought it might help the next guy. Let's go ahead and turn our TG-5 on, and I'm going to clean the screen there. Alright, so we have a clean screen. So what we want to do here is go to P mode, and I'm going to, there we go, P mode, and that's just going to do allow us to do our regular photos. On auto, you don't have this option, so if I go to auto, press menu, you'll notice that there is no time-lapse option. It's kind of grayed out there at the top. But if we go over to P and press menu, then you have the option. So you have the option probably in aperture mode, etc. So what we can do now is you press the right button, and you press, I don't know if you can see that, anyways, you press OK there. Now you have the option to turn it on. But what I didn't realize is that there's a whole bunch of settings. Let me get it in focus. There's a whole bunch of settings under that on. I know you can't see that. I'm going to press the right cursor, whatever you want to call it, right button. And now what you have is all these things. A number of frames at the top. Again, which you can't see very well, and maybe I'll just try and zoom in and kind of see that. And then you have starting wait time, and then you have interval length, and your movie setting. So down at the bottom, kind of starting at the bottom here. So the movie length, if you press right, go down to movie settings. Here's where you can actually tell it which resolution you want. So you have the option of full HD, HD, and I think it's 4K. Yeah, I can't really see it through my screen. So I have it to full HD generally. And then here you can select the frame rate. So in this case I selected 5 frames per second. Now the drawback of this unit is that you can only take 299 frames in total. So at the very top you have this frames option. And if you click on the frames option, you have to click the right button. You can't click OK. And then you can see at the top you can click basically a max of 299. So if I keep clicking through there, the third number there is only a 0, 1, or 2. And so you can do a max number of photos of 299 photos. And so that is why I say I set the frame rate to 5 frames per second, because that kind of lengthens out your time lapse and gives you a few more options. If you leave that at 30 frames per second, you won't get a very long video with only 299 photos. So that's kind of a drawback. I don't know if that's due to the card that I have in there. It seems to be a default. It doesn't seem to let me do anything other than 299, which is weird. So anyways, the trick to the getting into the advanced options is to click your right button. I just want to emphasize that because for me it's always not very intuitive. Now the neat thing about this is that you can set the start waiting time, so you can set it to wait, because you use the shutter to start the time lapse. What you can do is tell it to wait, say 5 minutes. You set the 5, I don't even know if you can see that, but you set the 5 there and press OK, and now it's going to start 5 minutes from the time I press the shutter button. And then the interval length, this is the time between photos. So in this case I have it set at 1 minute. I can put it to every 5 seconds or every 10 seconds. So that's kind of neat. So I'll put it back to 1 minute. 1 minute is what I did my last video with. So that's kind of cool. And of course you want to make sure that your time-lapse movie is on if you actually want to generate a movie. If you do not have this on, you have the options of on and off there. If you don't have this on, it will just take a bunch of photos, and that's not what you want to do. Now So the last thing is kind of the bottom section here, and the very bottom section on the screen shows the estimated length of the movie based on your current settings, so the number of frames per second you set in your movie settings, and the number of frames you told it to actually take. So in this case, it's estimating about 59 seconds for the finished video length. The other really neat thing that I thought was the estimated start and stop time. So based on the number of photos and the interval that you want to take them at, it says in this case, it's going to shoot photos for about 5 hours. So it's showing 2100 hours. It's in 24-hour time. 2100 hours to 200 hours. 200? Anyways, 2 a.m. basically is what it's saying. So about 5 hours. If the battery held out, it would shoot photos for about 5 hours, and that it would take 299 photos in that 5 hours length of time. So it's interesting because you can set it to turn on or to start taking photos, if you will, in an hour's time, maybe to catch an eclipse or something, and then there you go. And then have it start taking photos, and you can see when it's going to start taking photos and when it's going to stop. So it's kind of a neat idea. Again, the limitation of 299 is kind of odd. I don't know what the thinking was there, and it's tough to work around that. It's not very many photos, and maybe there's an override for it, which I haven't figured out yet. But the summary, the estimation of time and movie length is interesting. So again, how you get here? Well, you got to press your right button on your D-pad, on your keypad there, and that's how you get into the advanced options. And make sure that your time-lapse movie is on, otherwise it's not going to go ahead and generate a movie. Now it does the movie and it takes the photos, and then anytime going forward, basically, anytime you turn time-lapse on going forward, it will use those settings. So you can see that it shows the time-lapse on there, 299 photos, and then you press the shutter button and it will start taking photos. So thought I would show that to you and show you how to do it, because it was hard for me to find those particular settings, to be honest, in the in the camera. So there you go. You have to press the right button to get to the advanced settings, and then you can actually set them up. So hope you found that helpful. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.